So, to anyone joining, welcome. You guys are early. Usually people are a bit late, like 5 minutes late. So we'll start like probably around in 10 minutes time. But feel free to scan the QR code and tell us what your games, multiple of the year are. I knew that was going to come out the first one.
Oh man, no one's gonna give AC Shadows some love.
I think people got AC burnout. Too much AC.
Fair.
I'd be embarrassed to admit how long it took me to figure out that blueprints is blueprints. Like, I was halfway through the game before I was like, wait, that's why they called it that. I felt really stupid. Yes, Borderlands 4.
There we go.
Got a rep for the home team.
Well, my game of the year would be E33. I don't know how to vote, but that's my game of the year.
That's my game of the year too.
Even if the third act is.
It should have ended at the second act. I think, third act was a bit of a drag.
You're like, oh, this is where the money train stopped, and you guys just had to ship the game. It reminded me of Baldur's Gate 3. It's like, oh, Larian, this is where you ran out of money. As you fast track to the end.
That is true.
Yeah.
I mean, they swept through the awards at the Golden Joystick, so I'm not too surprised if they do similar at the Game Awards.
The temperature in LA among the industry people I've talked to is that Expedition 33 is going to just sweep every award they're up for. The momentum and the story behind them is too strong. It would be shocking if they didn't win the awards.
That is true.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, did Baldur's Gate 3 make such a big wave in sentiment compared to Expedition 33?
People were talking about it all over the place. Yeah. I guess part of the problem
I think that game is stickier.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's less fresh. Like, people just don't feel like, oh, this is something new. And when you're voting for Game Awards, it's hard to be like, oh, another D&D game. Even if it's an exquisitely well done D&D game.
Fair. I have to admit that I have not played Baldur's Gate 3. It's on my to-do list, but I haven't really. It's been.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
The second act is so good. Oh my gosh, the middle of the game is so good.
Most of what I know about it comes from thirsty memes about the vampire guy.
Oh.
Well, there's thirsty memes about every character in that game, and they thrust the thirst on you in the world. They are all very hot to trot, as it were, right? It's just like, who wrote these characters? It's just, but as an aside, in our data at Mind Game, because we've talked about this before, we have a POV that when Larian revealed that there was I'll put it as intimacy with a bear, that's what got the internet lit up about that game before it launched. They revealed the trailer, and that was the end of the trailer, and the internet ran with bear memes, and that just pushed it into another stratosphere of interest. Like, it was going to be a hit, but what made it Baldur's Gate 3 level hit is that bear meme. they had the goods and they showed the goods and the internet. It's like, I have not seen this before, and they just glommed onto it and ran with it.
No, I'd believe it.
I remember that. Like that broke the internet.
Yeah. Thought you saw everything. They're like, no, you have not. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have not seen this before. And it's yeah. And the rest is history. But I do believe that game like Baldur's Gate opens up because they're not quite the same genre, but like I think you open the door for like an Expedition 33 to be a massive hit because people are like clearly itching for narrative-driven RPGs. And I would say that's where they kind of connect with each other. It's like, oh, it's a good story in an RPG.
Yeah.
Not trying to be an action game, Square Enix.
Yeah. But it's the first time that turn-based RPGs actually had evolution in gameplay, I would say.
I mean, I think Mario, Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door would want to say in that. They're like, well, we did this game mechanic like 15, 20 years ago, but it was Paper Mario.
Different audience, I suppose.
Yeah. It's the counter system that Paper Mario did. Started in Mario RPG.
Wasn't there a remake for Paper Mario as well? Like recently?
Yeah. Yeah, Nintendo's great at remaking game and charging full price for them still. It's like, there it is.
Nintendo's just great at charging full price for stuff, like full stop.
They are so good. Everybody. No. Do you want to subscribe? Sure, we have a subscription model that's for N64 games. Like, oh, thanks, Nintendo. They are. They're my. I adore them as an analyst in a company because I think people underwrite what they do. Like they kind of disregard what they do too much. I think they're an outstandingly run business, and you're like, man, they don't budge on anything.
No, they do not. Yeah.
Alrighty, I think we can start. It looks like from the results we have a sweeping victory for Cleobscure, so we'll just leave it at that. So let me just start my slideshow and let's see. So again, welcome to the Video Games Tableau User Group. So let us just introduce ourselves. I'm Louis. I am a manager at 2K Games, where I'm part of the visual analytics as an arm of the business intelligence team. I am a Tableau visionary and ambassador. I do co-lead other Tableau user group as well, one being Singapore Tableau user group, as well as a community project called Games Like This, where we kind of source out data sets from the video games industry to help people practice visualization. I'm also a podcaster, so if you're interested, you can take a look at this podcast called Secrets of the Viz. I'll hand it over to Maha to give a little intro about himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Mahadevan Klan. I'm currently working as the Tableau practice lead at Take-Two Interactive. For those familiar with our portfolio, Take-Two is the parent company behind major labels like Rockstar Games, 2K, and Zynga. I'm really excited to be here today because this marks my very first time serving as a co-lead for the video games industry tag. While I'm new to the specific leadership role, I've been using Tableau for the last 13 years, and I look forward to bring that experience to the community.
Awesome. So this is a video games tag, and we're all from the video games industry. So we're supposed to be fun people. So feel free to chat and drop notes in the chat. We'll still be monitoring that. But if you have any questions or feedback, feel free to reach out as well. Yeah, Maha, you want to take this?
Yeah. So who are we and what are we trying to build here? So first and foremost, we are laser focused on the video games industry. However, we want to be clear about who belongs here. So this space is curated for anyone currently working in the industry, as well as those looking to get into. So whether you are a veteran or an aspirant, you are all welcome. Our mission is to facilitate a community where we can all learn and elevate one another. We want to solve problems together, share best practices, and importantly, have fun while doing it. In terms of how we operate, we are currently a virtual first group, and you can expect us to host a bi-monthly meetup to keep the conversation going. If you haven't joined our officially yet, please head over to the link at the bottom of the screen, and you can able to join our tag.
Awesome. Right. So today we are doing a level 2, which is all about riding on the waves of sentiment. We have 2 speakers, which we'll introduce later on. The next meetup we'll have is in February, and then followed by April and June. So for those who are in the Tableau space, you would probably have seen this around. So the IMVIS qualifiers are now closed. It ran from the 21st of October through the 20th of November. So if you are interested to take a look at what people are creating, which are pretty interesting. So this year's theme is about food and drinks. So you can go over to Tableau Public, go over to the search bar and search for IMVIS and kind of sort it by recently published, right? There are 2 podcasts that are doing coverage for the IMVIS authors. So we handpicked some of the visas that are really, really cool. So Dub Data is from Australia. So they have so far interviewed, I think, 8 authors. And then for me, Secrets of Vis, I will be also interviewing some of the authors, probably releasing around Christmas time. So you can, if you are interested, you can tune in. Each episode is probably about like 15 to 20 minutes, just diving into the design processes and how, like, their inspiration and how they actually create a story behind. Right. So some quick updates from Tableau. They just released the 2025.3. So some of the key features that I think might be interesting to most folks is Tableau Agent, which is previously called the Einstein Copilot. It's a language model that you can actually attach to your Tableau server. So you can kind of run a conversational LLM with your data. So this unlocks quite a bit of AI capability within the server structure, because historically this has been released in Tableau Cloud. So what you can kind of see to do is that you can do conversational AI within Prep, Desktop, and Web Edit. They have also a dashboard narrative, which helps you to summarize insights from the dashboard view itself. There are some new languages added. The other things that are interesting is they finally have a write to Databricks from Tableau Prep. Previously, they only had Snowflake, so that's good. The other 2 things that are probably more interesting for visualization is, the first one is custom native.
Einstein Copilot for Tableau is your trusted AI assistant to help you author vises and transform data.
Sorry, I forgot to say that I actually have a trailer for Einstein for Tableau Agent. So this is how it.
Not sure where to start? Recommended questions are immediately surfaced, helping you to get started exploring data fast. You do not need to be an experienced data analyst to gain insights from Tableau. Anyone can explore data. Ask Einstein your own questions in natural language. Your analytics assistant returns results with recommended chart types applied. The more you explore, the more you see and learn how Tableau works, building lasting data skills. Drilling into the data and asking follow-up questions keeps you in the flow and focused on the insights. Einstein Copilot for Tableau is there as you explore data and pick up where you left off. So as you learn, you can use your AI assistant to help fill in the gaps, but still drag and drop your way to insight. Learning how to prepare your data can be daunting for beginners. Einstein Copilot for Tableau is also there with you as you prepare data with smart calculation assistance.
Okay, so So that's that. So as I was talking about the visualization aspect, so there is a new custom color palettes. So historically, what you needed to do was to edit the preference file in your documents folder, but that comes with a lot of hassle. So what Tableau has done in 2025.3 is that you can now create custom palette within Tableau itself. So natively, you can select the palette, you can save a new palette. So this makes things a lot easier. The other thing they added was an upgrade for Show Me. So Show Me was kind of like a helper guide within Tableau itself for you to kind of create the different vistas. But what they added was a choose for me, right? So what you could do now is that you can click on the chart, click on choose for me. Tableau will kind of pick randomly some of the measures and dimensions to create that chart for you, and you can easily swap things around. So this makes this easier for people who maybe struggle a little bit on like how to get started on like creating a pie chart, creating a bar chart, tree map, and so on and so forth. So hopefully this would kind of make things a lot easier. For those people that are running on server, usually what we do is that we will probably not upgrade to the very latest version because there are some bug fixes and all, but you can probably see a lot of organizations starting to adopt this in maybe February or March. So something to look out for. So over to you, Maha, on the gaming events timeline.
Cool. So, all right, everyone. Let's take a look at the industry roadmap ahead. We have mapped out the major milestone from the end of 2025 through the summer of 2026. We start right around the corner in December. On December 11th, we have the Game Awards. As you know, this is effectively the Oscars of our industry. So beyond just the trophies, this is where we need to keep an eye out for world premieres and major trend shifts going into the next year. And moving into the Q1 of 2026, the focus shifts to Europe. January is a big month for Barcelona. We have the International Gaming Awards on the 18th, followed closely by the Global Gaming Awards. This is going to be a key moment for global recognition early in the year. Then in March, we pivot to the developer side. From March 9th to the 13th, it's a GDC, Game Developers Conference. This is less about the consumer hype and it's more about the craft itself. It also runs alongside the Independent Games Festival. So we'll be seeing a lot of innovation coming out on the indie scene here as well. In April, we have the prestigious BAFTA Game Awards set for April 17th. The BAFTA Awards are always a benchmark for artistic and narrative excellence in the field. And finally, we look ahead to the massive summer 2026. August is tagged. We have EVO for the competitive fighting game community, China Joy, which is massive for the Asian market, and we wrap up the summer with the Gamescom. So Gamescom is typically the largest event by attendance, so we can expect a lot of consumer news to land over there. Next slide, please. So drilling down into our first stop, the Game Awards. They are happening this Thursday, December 11th, which is day after tomorrow. So the event is broadcasting live from the Peacock Theater in Los Angeles. Since we are only 40 hours out, this is our immediate focus. If you haven't checked the nominees or cast your votes yet, the vote now window is critical. We'll be watching the broadcast closely, not just for the winners, but for the world premieres that will impact our market in 2026.
Moving on, let me introduce Colan. So Colan is the SVP at Screen Engine ASL and the business lead for Mind Game Data, a behavioral analytics platform that tracks how players discover, talk about, and spend time with games across TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, stream, search, and other attention signals. So he partners with publishers and platforms including PlayStation, Sega, Take-Two as well, and Riot, and others to inform franchise strategy, marketing, greenlighting, and live service planning. So today he's going to be talking on how the attention economy for our video games industry is, and I'll leave it over to him to go through his slides.
And apologies, it'd be easier for me not to put in presentation mode just because I have an ultra wide and it makes it really hard for everyone else to read. So to that end, Thank you for the introduction. Exactly right. Mind game data takes a behavioral big data approach to kind of tracking the gaming industry, but like kind of stepping back further to kind of understand like why. We think that, ultimately there is just so much content coming out in gaming. So here's just a snapshot of what new games looked like in 2014 relative to the entire market versus what 1,000 games looks like in 2024. And that number is increasingly getting looking smaller and smaller as time goes on. There's just a sheer amount of games out there. And it's not just on net new games. Gaming, like music, is what the entertainment kind of type that basically the back catalog is as valuable as what's to come. A lot of the most played games in the world today are games that have been out for 20 years. That is unique to gaming and music. If you look at other mediums like film and TV, like no one's watching Avengers Endgame 15 times in a row, but there are definitely people that are going to play Skyrim in the loop forevermore, right? So there are gamers who will never leave the games they play and have been playing for a very long period of time. So to that end, we find that our framing is very much this. For the attention economy, which gaming is very much a part of, and what does that basically mean? Everything is essentially zero sum. There's time, and how you spend your time is the finite resource that exists in the world. In a world of infinite content, of infinite opportunities to spend that time, your time is basically the finite resource. So to that end, we kind of think about the industry in this kind of funnel that you see here. So attention, getting attention is the most important thing. And from attention, you hope to then garner time investment. Now, time investment can be many things. It could be time invested in consuming content around the game, whether that be a TikTok, video, live stream on Twitch, YouTube bot, engaging on a social platform like Reddit. Like that is basically time investment. Could also be a free to play game. Like the game is already out, it's free. I can put my time into that game. Both things kind of quantify to us as time, but then that leads to purchase or money, right? So if I put more time into something, it's very much more likely that I will then spend my money on my other scarce resource into an ecosystem. And so that's the kind of framework that we kind of operate mind game data with. So what is mind game data? Well, mind game data looks at the attention economy and quantifies it into a singular metric that we call mind share. So mind share basically kind of approaches the market with that kind of very much a zero sum nature, where we look at 300,000 plus games on a weekly basis at mind game data, and that number is also climbing pretty rapidly for us. And we assign a basically mind share and or market share score to every single game we monitor. And so we deal with the largest game in the world, something like a Roblox that might, or Minecraft, depending on the week. Those games might hold 7 to 10% of the market or even less. And that is the largest game. Everything else kind of falls underneath that. And we will monitor games that get a minimal scoring of like 0.001% of the market, which are plenty of those type of games out there. So to that end, we do that so we can ultimately understand the entire market so that we could look at games that are yet to come, right? So games that are going to be released over the next 6, 9, 12 months. We find that we can very accurately more or less predict or ascertain like how a game is going to be successful, not successful, and how it will basically do relative to its predecessors or comps, like games that are like that game. So like I stated, mind game data very much tracks the attention economy. And how do we do that? We look at where we define gamers spend an abnormal amount of time on a global level. So we start global, the major in the country. So where does that attention fall? We find that attention falls on YouTube, where we look at views, Google, where we look at search trends, Twitch, where we look at time spent via minutes watched, Reddit, where we look at community engagement, TikTok, where we look at new video creation and video consumption, Steam, like everybody else, we look at like kind of the follower growth of games and concurrent active games. And then finally for mobile, we partner with AppMagic, a kind of sensor tower like data analytics company, where we look at downloads and revenues. We take all these signals at the game level, put it through our modeling system, and out on the other side, we kind of give a mind share score. And so some of the stuff that I put out publicly, so I do a lot of free data analysis and sharing of data from our end. So if you just find me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to follow and or connect. But like I'll put out these like S tier grades all the time for games that we kind of monitor and track. And so we can see like games that all fall in the S tier ecosystem all the way down to D and F, obviously, from there. So I did want to just run through that deck real quick, because I think the coolest thing we do is kind of just show you guys what we basically have built in Tableau. So bear with me for a second. So our company, while migrating out of Tableau currently into a web-based view, we very much built our business. We've been around for a couple of years now, in Tableau as the kind of proof of concept ground of what we're trying to do. So that's the founder, Brian Rogers. And we think Tableau is an amazing platform that got our business off the ground and able to kind of showcase and highlight and visualize our data as we see it. So really a really cool experience. So to that end, I'm just going to kind of walk through the methodology one more time just so you can see it. But we look at primary sources, secondary sources, and like I stated, 300,000 plus games, an ever climbing number. We basically approach monitoring those games from a zero sum perspective, assigning everything a market share score on a given week, and basically that's what mind share is. And why does anyone care? As I always say, we find that we vary our predictive and our correlative to success up to 15 weeks out, which for a lot of games, that is when they start marketing. So we get a lot of, how do you know it's going to happen? We haven't started a marketing campaign, because we think a lot of work is done before that happens in the reveal of a game, the announcement of a game. Games oftentimes have very, very long marketing cycles to them, especially new games. People think they just come out of nowhere, but that actually diminishes the amount of work that they do. Like something like Pal World was quote unquote like a game that came out a couple of years ago that was called a Pokemon clone. That was a surprise, but they had actually been marketing the game for like 4 years. So it wasn't out of nowhere game. They had done the work to build a community underneath it that then became a wildly successful game, at least on its launch, prior to Nintendo and or the Pokemon company having deep and feelings about that and maybe coming after them for IP theft. But that all said, they definitely did a good job marketing the game, and that was over years of kind of community engagement, et cetera, et cetera. So I like to show this because I think this is a cool way to how we visualize Tableau. So we are known for bubbles. And I get asked all the time, what do these bubbles mean? Great question. We do two things in the Tableau dashboard. We do a color hue. So blue means growing, red means decline, or like orange, like off orange, and everything in the middle is kind of muddled in the middle. The bigger the orb, the bigger the market share and or mind share of that particular game. So we're looking at last week's data. Again, we update the data on a weekly cadence. So I'll just roll my mouse over what I presume is to be the number 1 game. Nope, number 2 game in the world, but it's a good talking point. So Minecraft recently seeded its throne, probably back to Roblox. And as you can see here, you have a bunch of metadata that kind of pops out of the Tableau dashboard. And so mind share is at a 6.2, meaning the market share and or demand share and or the attention share of this particular game is 6.2% of global share. It ranks number 2 in search with 37 million search queries last week, number 2 in video, and number 7 on streaming. Then you can see a bunch of the metadata that we've both applied from sources like Steam and our own taxonomy against that. And then you see the heat map at the bottom. This is similarly telling you where it's popular, where it's still has an audience, but less popular, and where it has no discernible audience. So for us, blue means densely popular. It's where it index highest. So Minecraft, everyone kind of assumes, yeah, it's a US game, but most people don't understand it's actually a really big game in China. And you can see that kind of index really high with the blue. Then the red means has an audience, but less densely popular in that particular market. And so you see Europe, India, parts of North Africa, etc. And then black means no discernible audience. There's no signals coming from that market, at least in the past week, right? So that's what you're seeing below. Now, we do this because we find this to be a really good discovery engine for our clients. So everyone knows that Minecraft is a game, but I'm curious, and especially in the West, I'm going to go over my favorite case study on this one. Most people in my market where I'm based, so Los Angeles, United States, where the Game Awards are happening, most people have no idea what Guardian of Free Fire is. I know I'm probably talking to people in the call that know exactly what this game is, but it's like a blind spot for the West, or at least in the US. And so you're like, wait, Guardian of Free Fire is the 3rd largest game in the world? By our estimation, yes, it is, because they're dominant in Southeast Asia, India, especially India, LATAM and South America and North Africa. That's where they dominate. And if you unpack what they actually do, they're very localized and community driven in those particular markets. And because of that, they are, by our estimations, the from attention share, market share perspective, number 3 globally. But that's still a pretty big game. We also kind of discovered things that are like, what is this? So you have much older and I will call it viral content like Granny. Granny consistently. Granny is a horror game where you're locked in a house and you have X amount of days to get out of the house, otherwise Grandma gets you. You know, that's Granny. And so Granny is a series of games, and Granny is very lo-fi, and Granny also consistently punches well above its weight in terms of just the interest share that it has around the world. Or, you know, something like, see if I can find it. Most people don't know what this game is. I want to find it. Pokey. There's Pokey. Like literally anything that we classify as a game, we could see here, like we could comment all the time for our clients, like what's Pokey. There's other games that kind of fit that mold. And so this is meant to be very much a discovery engine for gaming industry folks, because there's just so much stuff out there. It's really hard to actually know everything that's in market. So like I stated before, we do this because we want to understand what's yet to come. And I'll just show you one version of what's yet to come from our end. Here is the market. Now, this will change very much after this week. So for those who on the call, Game Awards are happening this week. A lot of what's going to happen in the next 6 months will be unveiled at the Game Awards. Yes, it's the gaming industry's Oscars, or Oscars-ish. It's also the gaming industry's big commercial, where we love to just hammer the audience with like 3 hours of trailers, which is really awesome, I think, because it just tells the gamers, which is why we have such a high viewership, what's going to happen over the next, next year or so. And so obviously everybody knows that Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out at some point. We at Mind Game Data are incredibly bullish on this game, to the point where we are more bullish, and I think the market is bullish on this. I get a lot of, is it really going to be that popular? And I'm like, it's going to just blow the doors off. So Grand Theft Auto 6 moving out of its stated launch window in the spring, May, into the fall of next year in November, opens up a huge opportunity for a lot of games to reassess their release date. So I expect this to very much change, because a lot of games are going to flee to May to try to get the game out early, or to move the game into that month, now that Grand Theft Auto has moved. The gaming industry is trying to avoid the Grand Theft Auto Death Star the best they can. So you can see here, these are all the games that are yet to come. Grand Theft Auto being obviously the biggest one there. So I'm going to jump to the next dashboard. So we advise our clients to use the first dashboard that I've been showing you guys, just to understand the market and kind of do analysis and like kind of pick apart like what we think is going to happen. But a lot of how we look at the industry is very much dictated by the launches. So we very much you have to understand the entire market to then understand what's yet to come, because the friction of gaming, as like I stated earlier, is most gamers are going to play the games they already played. We estimate about 85% of gamers are not going to leave the games they're already in, right? So on a given week, you're really fighting over 15% of available market share, as it were, right? So doing that allows us to do this. So here we've built a dashboard inside Tableau that looks at cumulative mind share. So slightly different metric here, where instead of reporting a mind share score every single week, we think that mind share, market share, demand share is like a snowball of marketing efforts. So it becomes a cumulative score over time, meaning it gets added every single week of its duration into launch. So here's what you're looking at, is the additive mind share of games coming out to market. So Metroid Prime 4 literally released this week, so you could see it spike up there. Octopath Traveler, similarly there. Got Marvel Cosmic Invasions, a beat 'em up game. A kind of spiritual sequel to a Ninja Turtle games the same company made, also came out last week. So you're looking at games that are just literally just launched, and you're also looking at what's to come. So this is a sneak preview. Now, obviously, like the big number over here is Resident Evil. This game comes out next winter, and we would say is going to be by far the most successful game coming out of next winter. Now, is that a profound opinion? Probably not. I think most gaming industry folks would understand that that game is probably going to be a hit. It's really just the scale it's going to be relative to other games in the market. And I think another one that we think is really interesting that they've done a good job so far is Bond First Light 007. I expect this to probably pick up, because this IO Interactive and has done a lot of marketing with the Game Awards, and Jeff Keighley, the person that runs it. So I expect them to probably have something at the Game Awards this week. But you can see that this is probably the number 2 game coming out of the spring, winter next year by our estimations, at least right now. But this could all change. Like I said, this is live data effectively on a weekly basis. And as games kind of get moved and announced into into the specific dates. This will all basically change on a weekly basis. So yeah, we're looking at the market, what's yet to come, but I'd also want to say that let's do a quick case study of something and how we quote unquote can understand the market of games, how we would say we're predictive of outcomes. So I'm going to throw up a case study real quick on Ghost of Yote versus Ghost of Tsushima. For those who don't know what those games are, Ghost of Yote was released by Sony Interactive this fall, whereas Ghost of Tsushima was released a couple of years ago, and it's a predecessor to Ghost of Yote. So this is how our clients will come through and like look at our data and better understand like how they're tracking. And so here you can see that we were always bearish on the launch of Ghost of Yote, and that became more profound at about 10 weeks from launch, where it was basically going to fall somewhere about 30%, give or take, on a given week below its predecessor, Ghost of Tsushima. And that was born to be true publicly when Sony Interactive, during their earnings call, basically stated that Ghost of Yote had underperformed their sales of Ghost of Tsushima by 28%. So we were ultimately off by 2 points of where we would say it would fall in the launch. But you can see here that at about 10 weeks from launch, the momentum just did not catch up to Ghost of Yote. And Ghost of Tsushima was able to ride a much more higher attention / momentum wave into its launch window. And so this is kind of what we do. We're like, yeah, we can kind of see that. And so our clients will try to take action on this data, right? Like because your game is tracking behind at negative 10 weeks does not mean you have to sit on your hands and do nothing. Obviously, marketers are going to market and they're going to try to fight for that attention share and market. But I think another interesting way to look at what happened is just the sheer amount of content. Going backwards, I'm going to go to our calendar view real quick. So I'm sorry for jumping around a bit, but I just want to put this in a bit of a perspective lens. We'll just go backwards on this one to, let's say, December 31st. This last fall in gaming was the most packed fall in our data tracking, which dates back to 2019, that we've ever seen. There was so many games that came out to market. Let's see if I can get this to work in my browser right now. Apologies. No, it's not gonna let me work it. But like I would highlight this, and we would basically say like hundreds of games that we're monitoring here. But Ghost of Tsushima, or Ghost of Yote, was impacted by what we'd say was the launch window. So this is just a visualization where in the month of October, Ghost of Yote launched effectively on the same week as Battlefield 6, the most successful game this fall. So that's going to eat up a lot of that available attention share that I talked about. That 50% is a lot of it's going to be sucked up by Battlefield 6. They also launched immediately after EAFC, which is a massive game globally, less so in the US, but monster game globally, and always is a top game in its given month. And a week after Battlefield 6 and Ghost of Yote launched, Pokemon ZA launched, which they might say that's not a competitor, but we say zero sum, and that's the market. Like you're competing against a Pokemon launch effectively, which is another massive franchise and IP that does insanely well on every single release. So going back to this, just showing these two games, I'm actually going to reload this. It's going to be much easier, and I'll show you another way to look at that data. And by the way, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'm happy to kind of do any kind of live case study build out and reads. So back to the cumulative mind share score, I'm actually going to turn this into 12, 15, 2025, just to cut off the tail. And then I'm going to go backwards in time just to look at how we would look at the market from September on. And then I'm going to add like a couple of weeks. I'll call them weeks vibes. So you can predict a launch window and like kind of go to market, but then there's also, we always call vibes and or positive sentiment that kind of will kind of push a game into the stratosphere post launch. So here's how we would look at the fall in terms of just everything. So Battlefield 6, Arc Raiders, Silk Song, EAFC, Pokemon. So S tier would be Battlefield 6. A tier would be these games here. So we're like Pokemon ZA all the way up to Arc Raiders, Call of Duty Black Ops 7. We on our end, basically, we're tracking this game to be below Battlefield 6. Almost as soon as Battlefield 6 revealed itself to market, and we were pretty like, well, we don't think this is going to be a strong year for Call of Duty. But that said, we're always like what Call of Duty is going to Call of Duty, and there's always a kind of high floor for this game, and I would say they found a new floor for themselves. Then the floor was much lower than even I anticipated. And this would have been the worst Call of Duty since Call of Duty Vanguard in our tracking. But this is just another way to look at the market. So beyond the cumulative side, we also look at weekly, just to kind of go to it. So this is actually just a mind share on a weekly basis. And this is where I could say games that are consistent in their release window is really interesting to always look at this stuff. So I'm just going to pull up Call of Duty. We'll do Black Ops 7, Black Ops 6, last year's installment of Call of Duty, and I'll throw some of the Modern Warfare games in there. Actually, I'm going to put Vanguard, and I'll do Modern Warfare 2 and 3. So what you're seeing here is just the mindshare score repeated on a weekly basis through its launch window. And you can see that this is how we would stack rank all the Call of Duties and their launches effectively, but you could also see like where the marketing beats fall. So looking at something like Black Ops 7, you could see that their announcement was not nearly at the same peak as the previous announcements, and all the marketing beats basically underperformed what Call of Duty does pretty consistently. You could also see that Call of Duty is a very well-run machine where they clearly run a very consistent playbook, because the weeks that they do things in the launch window are almost on top of each other. Like there's a little bit of variance in the 20 to 18 range, but you can see the closer they get to launch, the consistency of these spikes tell me that they are doing their betas at a very consistent tick. They're doing their reveals at a very consistent tick. It's basically the marketing of Call of Duty has become a process, like an assembly line process, and they know when the beats should drop relative to when the game comes out. And because of that, we can really grade them against themselves and say, well, this Call of Duty is not hitting the same highs as, say, something like Modern Warfare 3 or Black Ops 6. So that is how we quantify the kind of attention share and market share of the gaming industry within our tool. Now, as I said before, we're in the process of migrating the Tableau dashboard, and so I would show you that, but it's very much like a work in progress on us right now, and I don't want to get in the way of the developers working on it. But yeah, we're really excited on like what we're able to do with our data and like the existing Tableau infrastructure, even though we are graduating into our own kind of owned and operated web-based view at the beginning of next year. So yeah, that's Mind Game Data. Thank you guys for hearing me out, and I appreciate you guys hosting me this week.
Thank you so much, Colan. That is really, really interesting to just see how the sentiment has changed and shifted for the different franchise. And like I said, it's a zero-sum attention economy. So anything you does just competes for attention. There isn't any question coming in, or maybe people are just shy. But if anything pops up, I'll let you know. But thank you so much, Colan, for sharing your knowledge on this. And anyone who wants to know more about Mind Game, feel free to reach out to Colan on LinkedIn and drop him a message. For spending time with us today. I hope you learned a lot. The next session will be in February. So until we meet everyone, have a good, happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you so much for both our speakers for giving all your precious time to give us this whole process and sharing your knowledge as well.
Thanks, Lewis and Maha, for putting all this together. It's been great. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.